Okay, so we have already done a lot of work with time and time intervals, so we're going to kind of switch gears. And for some of chapter 10, we are going to be working with measurement, measuring the length of objects and making some comparisons. So for lesson 10.6, we are looking at how we can generate measurement and show that information with a line plot, which we've done a little bit of work with way at the beginning of the year, but I know you also covered it in second grade as well. So looking at the top where it says connect, it says you have learned how to measure length to the nearest inch. Sometimes the length of an object is not a whole unit. For example, a paper clip is more than an inch, but it's less than 2 inches. You can measure length to the nearest half inch or fourth inch. The half-inch markings on a ruler divide each into 2 equal parts, and the fourth-inch markings divide each inch into 4 equal parts. So it's kind of showing it to you over here. So if this is 0, where every ruler starts on the left, and here's 1, you could split it into 2 equal groups, or into 2 equal parts, which we know are halves. When you split something in 2, they're halves. So here's 1 half and here's the second half. Or if you split it up into fourths, you'd have 1/4, 2, 3, 4 fourths, or 2 halves, which we know when the numerator and the denominator are the same, it equals 1 whole. Now if you don't have a ruler, I will post a printable ruler, which I will be using for today's lesson. I will see if I can send home rulers on Wednesday. If you have a tape measure, that could also work, but let me know and see how I can help. So for number 1 of our examples, it says use a ruler to measure the glue stick to the nearest half inch. Remember, half means it has a denominator of 2. So you need to line up the left end of the glue stick with the 0 mark. So I could even do it with my printable ruler too. You notice that it lines up exactly the same. So you see where the end of the glue stops on the stop. So I'm going to kind of even go over it. So looking at where that line that I drew, which marks the end of my glue stick, so I can see the right end of the glue stick is between the half-inch marks for blank and blank. Now the half-inch marks are a little bit longer than the 1/4 inch, the half-inch marks. So we are looking at the half-inch marks and the whole inch marks. So it's past 1 inch. It's past 2, but it hasn't gotten to 3 yet. So it's between 2, because here's the 2, which is closest, and then the next half-inch mark is right here. So it's past the 2, but it hasn't gone past the 2.5 inch mark yet. So if I'm comparing this tick mark and this tick mark, what would you say would be closest? If you said it was closer to the 2.5 inch, you would be correct. So it's nearest, so closest to 2.5 inches. For example 2, we're comparing the length of a paper clip to the nearest 1/4 inch. So make sure you read that question carefully, because it's going to tell you what exactly you need to have your answer in. Whole numbers, half numbers, or fourths. So here's my paper clip. It's starting at the 0 and it goes all the way to here. So here my 1/4 inch. 1, 2, because here's 1/4, here's another fourth, here's another fourth, here's another fourth. So we've gone past the 1. So here's 1 1/4, 1 2/4, 1 3/4. So it's between, it's gone past the 1/4, it's gone past the 2/4, but it hasn't reached the 3/4 yet. So it's between these two, 1 2/4 and 1 3/4. So if we're comparing this tick mark and this tick mark, which one would you say is closer to the edge of the paper clip? If you guessed 1 3/4, you would be correct. All right, let's keep going. So, up at the top, we have another activity. This is where we are going to show our measurement data. So it says, measure the length of 10 crayons to the nearest 1/2 inch. Complete the line plot. Draw an X for each length. So we are measuring 10 crayons. So if we're measuring 10, that means we will need 10 X's on our line plot. So they've already said that 1 crayon would be 3.5. Let's say we had 2 that were 2.5, 4 that were 3, 1 that was 2, and 2 that were 1.5. Okay, so it says describe any patterns you see in your line plot. So looking at my line plot, I notice that the most crayons were 3 inches. I'm going to put IN for inches. I could say 1, 2, 3 crayons were 2 inches or less. Okay. Let's keep moving forward. It says measure the length of your fingers to the nearest 1/4 inch. Complete the line plot. Draw an X for each length. So I'll use my hand. So I'm going to measure from where my finger starts to where it stops. So I would say if we're going right about here, it's gone past 2 1/4, 2 2/4, but it's close to 2 3/4. I'm going to put a tick mark. If I look at this finger, so it's 2, it's almost to 3 exactly. This one is almost to 3. You can do this with your hands as well. I'm just going to do it with mine to show you. So 1, 2, 2 1/4, 2 2/4, 2 3/4. And then my pinky. 1, 2, it's pretty close to 2 exactly. So there would be my line plot. All right, we'll do a few to share and show. Measure the length of the nearest 1/2 inch. Is the key closest to 1.5, 2 inches, or 2.5? So I'm going to line it up. My 0. So we've gone to 1. Here's 1.5. So here's 1.5, here's 2. So it's gone past 1. It's past 1.5, but it hasn't quite reached 2. So looking at where my line is, it's a lot closer to 2 inches than to 1.5. So I would say it's closest to 2 inches. Alright, we'll do a few more, and then I want you to try some on your own. It says measure the length to the nearest 1/2 inch. So I'm going to line up my ruler. So we've gone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 inches. And then here's half. So is it closer to 5 or closer to 5.5? 5.5 inches. Okay. Measure this to the nearest fourth. So we're going to make sure our answer ends either in a whole number or with fourths. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this would be 4 1/4, 4 2/4, 3/4. So 4 3/4 or 5. Which one is closer? This one or this one? The 3/4. So it would be 4 3/4 inches. Okay. Alright, let's measure the length of the nearest half inch. So here's 1, here's 2. It's right almost exactly on that 2.5 inch mark. Okay. And number 5. 0. It hasn't quite reached the 1. Here's half. Is it closer to the half or closer to the 1? I'm sorry, I didn't do that right. I needed to measure the length. That was the width. So here's 1 inch, here's 1.5, here's 2. Is it closer to 1.5 or 2? I would say 1.5 as well. Okay. So we've done a few. I want you to do 6, 7, 8. If you want to do 9, you can. You don't need to. And then 10, 11, and 12. So I want you to work on those questions. So we had 6, 7, 8, 10, 11, 12. That's what I want you to do right now. And then your homework, I want you to do 10.6 in your math homework book. Remember, you can take a picture and have your parents email me for your homework, or you can rip out the page and have your parent turn it in to school on Wednesday. These practice questions you don't need to submit because I will show you the answers tomorrow. Alright, take your time, read the questions carefully. Make sure you at least get through these questions. If you want to do the other ones, you can. That's just up to you. Alright, good luck.